What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in today. Today is a very special show. This is Duma,
And this is Roma.
and Duma and I have actually made a very important decision, and we have decided to nurture an intentional garden.
Yes, nurture an intentional garden. What does that mean exactly, Roma?
Exactly what it sounds like. And in order to understand it, you have to feel it. And that's something that hopefully you guys will be able to accomplish, or we will be able to help you accomplish. Today, I want to touch on a serious topic that people like to minimize or don't really recognize could be an issue, and that is our confidence. And I feel like people who have high confidence are able to achieve more, they would help others, they're able to actually go out there and make a change and just get things going. So the opposite of that would obviously be low confidence, low self-esteem. And unfortunately, a lot of the community suffers from low self-esteem. And partially it's because they don't even realize that they have low self-esteem or that it's even an issue. Low self-esteem can occur at different points in our lives. It can be something that, stems from our childhood. It can be something that occurs later. It can occur at any moment. It's more of a feeling, thoughts. And once we let those thoughts control us, they ultimately become an issue, low self-esteem. So one of the factors could be our environment. Another factor could be our inner critic, which is the voice inside that basically criticizes everything we do. And it could also vary on trauma or neglect. So trauma, obviously, some things are out of our control. So we've been through traumatic events, and no one trauma is bigger or smaller than the other. And I hate when people say, well, I got in a car crash, so I'm more traumatized than you are just because you witnessed a bird getting shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everyone experiences their own version of trauma, and I guess people take it to various degrees, but at the end, it's still trauma.
There's no way to really measure trauma.
Yeah, and it's something everyone has to deal with.
Exactly. And then neglect as well. So neglect really, I think, starts with parenting. So if our parents haven't been there for us, we seek attention. I think the first source of love are our parents. And if they neglect us because they're too busy working, they're too busy doing whatever it is that they're doing, not realizing.
They're too busy working out their own issues to be there for you.
Yeah.
100%,
Yeah. So they're doing what they're doing without realizing the type of effect it could be having on their children. And honestly, the way to control or to solve any, issue or concern is to identify what you're feeling and the feelings that are connected to a trigger. And the trigger would be what sets off these emotions. So first we need to identify our emotions. A lot of people try to sum it up with just anger, happiness, love, and, sadness. It's actually much more than that.
Like the little people in that one Pixar movie. What was that called?
The pupil?
The little people, the feelings.
Oh,
in that
okay.
Pixar movie.
Not the minions. Oh, no. I'm not sure.
Well, anyway.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah. So, yes. So, our feelings. There are many. There are our emotions and our feelings. So, there's anger. And anger could also feel like, frustration could also feel like anger. Vulnerability could also feel like anger sometimes. Sadness, loneliness, these are all associated with feeling angry. So you got to be able to figure out when you're sad, lonely, versus when you're just angry or just bored or just anxious. Then we have shame. We have deficiency, where you feel like, you're not adequate enough because you can't function like the next person, which then leads to depression, which is basically anger, frustration, sadness, all wrapped into one. And depression is what we want to avoid. So ultimately, if you're able to identify your emotions, then you can avoid depression. And depression is what occurs when everything goes ignored,
It's the imbalance.
The imbalance.
The imbalance, yeah.
Exactly. And then also, which leads to this low self-esteem. And so that inner critic now, I want to emphasize more on that, because I feel like that is the most harsh voice we could ever encounter. And it can become debilitating if you allow it, which is like depression, basically. And I feel like a lot of us, and each one of us has that inner voice, and it's normal. So it doesn't mean that the inner voice, the inner critic, shouldn't be there. Generally, there's the perfectionist, there's the taskmaster, there's the inner controller, there's the guilt tripper, the destroyer, the underliner, and then the molder. Underminer. Excuse me. Yes. So I identify with the taskmaster, because I always want to be able to accomplish everything in one day. And if I don't, sometimes I, go hard on myself. But that's okay. As long as I accomplished some things, we can't accomplish everything.
It's a good and bad thing, It's there. All these things are there because probably back in the day, these helped us survive, But like, we don't need to have these traits or these.
We need to rely solely on our
Yeah, I guess instincts, or just kind of like this old way of thinking,
because we have all these tools now, and these methods, and we've learned. People have researched. People are open-minded, and we're realizing that we don't always need to overpower or overwhelm our brains. Use the resources, people.
Because it's not just our brains. It's our heart. It's everything. It's your body, what you put in your body, things like that.
You're absolutely right. I'm glad you brought that up, because yes, people don't realize that stress puts a strain on our entire existence. An issue, low self-esteem, anything that's negative strains the entire being, not just the brain. Thank you. So, how do we change this? How do we deal with that gremlin, that voice that's telling us we can't do this, or are you sure? Don't do it. This isn't right. That judge, that asshole.
Which everyone deals with to, varying degrees.
Yeah. How do we not let it overpower us? And I would like to say that the way we can control it is by realizing what's happening here. And by realizing, we are taking control, and actually we're taking responsibility for what we think and how we feel and how we choose to react. And living your life in realization is ultimately living in truth. So living in realization, you are seeing things for the way that they are, not the way that we wish them to be, or the way that we perceive them, because everyone's perception is different. Could be different. So reality. So basically seeing things for what they are based on the facts.
And anything less than that, in my opinion, is not desirable, It's like, what's the point? Like, yeah, like why settle for less than that, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. We're human beings. We are magical. We are intelligent. We have infinite skills that can be brought out, just so many things. So settling that's something someone created. A lazy person created that word.
Probably.
Settling.
Yeah.
It's okay. Complacent.
Settling is just settling. A person who settles would say it.
Basically, we don't even need a name. We can call them anything.
We call
Ultimately.
them
Exactly. So from now on, yes, we'll call them the settlers. Because you're just doing whatever, so you don't even deserve a name. Why? I'm not going to waste my time remembering your name. I like that.
Yeah.
So basically, coming to realization, if you're able to see life for what it is, you can achieve absolute freedom, because you won't be attached to anything or any one feeling or any emotion or anything like that. You will experience dynamic enlightenment. You know, you have a better understanding of everything. And then you'll be in a place where transcendent truth lies, and you see reality in the world, and you're in there, in the world.
As it is, as it should be.
Right now. Where we are, where we should be. We are where we need to be. And by doing this, essentially, we're able to evaluate our thoughts and break them down and react in a way that we choose to react. So essentially, realization is thinking of what you're feeling. That way, you're able to control your reaction. The average mind would feel, react immediately. There's no middle space. There's no time to think about it, to process it, to feel it, to even know what you're feeling.
But most people don't recognize that the feeling and the reaction are two separate things. They think they're together, which they're not.
Exactly. And it took me a while to actually identify that.
And I remember in a meditation retreat that I went to, Buddha basically, he was able to describe maybe like seven different stages, even in between the feeling and the reaction. So yeah, I think that's important. You have to really know what the emotion is, and then decide to have a reaction or not.
Yes. So so you're saying that each emotion now can even get broken down. So right now we're just speaking in general, so it'll be less stages, but once you identify your emotions, you can break down that emotion even into parts, not just a reaction. But anyway, so by doing this, you can evaluate the situation, and you're able to feel the emotions that are attached to certain things, which are triggers. You know, something can occur and you'll say, oh wow, this makes me feel good. Or something happens and you're like, no, you know, like I feel angry, I'm off balance, it feels bad, does not feel good. Or, hey, oh my God, I feel so excited. You know, I like doing this. This is a thrill. I want to do this more. It gets me going. Or I get nervous when this happens. You know, these are just different things that you could be feeling or realizing. And then you get to react to it. And basically, the reaction should always be understanding. Because ultimately, you are taking the time to understand it. So you don't have to get angry, because you know if you just blow up on somebody because they cut you off, you're causing more harm to the situation. And yes, this is where being the bigger person does kick in. And you can only become the bigger person if you understand. So now let's see what understanding is. Well, to me, understanding is being able to cope with reality. Because reality and what my vision is or what my goals are don't always have to match up. But if they do, great, you know, that's balance and that's peace. But sometimes our reality is different than what our vision is. So being able to identify that, I like to think of reality in three elements. And that would be the being or the spirit element. Then we have the soul or the self. And then we have the world, the cosmos, which is essentially the reality, the manifestations. So the being or the spirit is the higher power, that the superior, the can't do any wrong, knows, morals, values, righteousness.
Yeah, it's what most people try to box in as God.
Right.
But,
Or, that higher power. Sometimes they say it's them. And if they're relying on themselves, that would be considered the super ego. Because it's the righteous self that we would want to be. So yes, that good. It could be, that mom's voice, whatever you want to relate it to, but it's that voice that's the right, the knowing, the feeling, and not always just a voice. Then the soul and the soul is, how we perceive it. How we choose to deal with it. It's basically what we have control over.
right.
Because the being is, we don't have any control over that. But the soul and the self, we control that. And that's where our emotions and our thoughts and our feelings are stored or come from, derived. Then the world, the reality that we live in, that we can't control. But if we control our thoughts and our feelings to a certain extent, we can manifest the reality we want. But technically, we're not in control of reality, only of our thoughts. So by controlling our thoughts, we control our reality. But some people try to control reality. They try to change reality, but they still have the same thinking. So that's where the disconnect is. It starts with the mind. The mind controls everything. And some of us...
Well, it's the mind and also being in tune with that, with the higher power,
Exactly. And you can only do that by becoming aware. So, like you said, being in tune. So, the being is the higher power. So, everyone knows that, right? Everyone knows about this higher power or God, the superior. But some of us choose to ignore that. So, that's when people are non-believers. They doubt. They choose to ignore it. They just feel like there is no God or there is no higher power. This is fake and all that.
Yeah, their ego has diminished God, and the thing is, it's capable to live like that in this day and age, or
in the realm, in the world, in this, in this world, in like the outer world.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that it's not there, right? Because even what we're trying to talk about, it's by definition not there, but it is there.
Right. Just because you can't see it, or just because it's not totally explainable doesn't mean it's not there. The way you do start to live that way is that you have to think about it. Once again, back to your thoughts, your brain. You got to get the brain going. You got to use that thing, for the right things, for the right thoughts.
Yeah, use your mind as a tool, or like it's like one of your senses. And if you uncheck the mind, then it could do whatever it wants, and then that's when it kind of takes over in a negative way.
Well, there's this quote that I read that always sticks with me, and it says, "The mind is a beautiful servant, but a horrible master."
Right. Yeah. But we think of it as if it is the master, when it's really not.
It's our servant. It's here to guide us, not to control us. And so the being, basically, is technically where we get our, our good thoughts, our motivation. And some people choose to ignore that. So ultimately, they ignore the essence of reality. And I feel like essence can be described as like our purpose, the reason we're here, like what we are here to show, or basically things that we can't feel. So the essence is like love and joy, it's laughter, it's strength, it's compassion. It's just the need for more and for wanting to help others and help yourself. And sometimes that's missed because in order to, feel the essence or get to the essence of reality, you have to get in touch with the being. And the being is universal. Everyone understands that, God or the higher power. But essence can't really be felt or understood. I mean, it can be felt, it can't be understood. So to each his own. My essence is different than your essence. We bring something different, but all of us have something to contribute. And it's up to us to realize that, to dig deep within ourselves. And we'll be able to figure that out.
It should be your life's goal to figure that out.
And once we figure out our essence, ultimately we have started to find balance. And balance is something that will develop as our soul becomes mature, or actually I should say, as our soul develops, it must learn how to function in the reality, the real world, and still stay connected to the spirit, the being. Mm-hmm. And balance. That's basically when you can, get to the essence. So there are various reasons why we get disconnected from the essence. And those basically, I like to call that temptation. And we get disconnected, we get distracted, we get moved from our purpose, the essence. So distraction is there to take us away from our essence, our purpose. And distraction can come from anywhere. Mm-hmm. And it's basically, it develops through fixed patterns of perception and behavior known as personality or ego. And it's basically us getting stuck in routine and forgetting our true purpose. And the ego is now what I want to talk about, which is crazy. But anyways, the ego is that voice, which we can kind of call it the inner critic. But it's not so critical all the time, because sometimes the ego helps us feel confident. So the ego can be used for good or bad. Sure. But usually the ego wants to be better. And which is great, but ultimately we're not better than any other human. We have certain qualities, but the ego is going to say, you need to win, you need to speak up, and sometimes, the ego isn't always right.
Yeah, I think the ego is it helps in survival, but it's you don't really need it now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Then we have our super ego, and our super ego is actually, if we were the perfect person, or like what we perceive as like a successful, happy, perfect person, that's what our super ego will preach. But normally our super ego and our reality is usually not in conjunction. But if it is, great, But the reality is, no one's perfect. We do get distracted, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. But the super ego is our ambition. It's what we want in life.
Like your ideal, basically.
Your ideal. And basically, I'm so sorry. By exploring the ego, the thoughts that come from our ego, and the thoughts that are derived from our superego, we can find the holes. And the hole is basically the void. And the void is what ultimately leads to like a bad habit or distraction. And by thinking about things and experiencing them, we can confront our voids and our holes. By going through the hole, we can figure it out, we can feel it, and then essentially bring something back, understanding. And then that hole is sealed. And now we moved on to the next conspiracy, the next hole, the black hole. And this can only happen by realizing and then controlling the ego, the emotions, and then being able to go through the hole and coming back with a lesson. Hopefully you guys are following me here.
No, yeah. What's crazy, Roma, is that, I think we talked about it earlier, but it's crazy that you came to this like experientially, and because this is exactly what the Buddha says.
Yeah. And it's just because Duma and I haven't actually seen each other in a while, and he's basically affirming everything that I felt, and I have grown. So thanks for recognizing that. And one more thing that I want to talk about today is self-talk. And I feel that once we master this, we could never have low self-esteem. Because as soon as we even feel low, that's when this self-talk mechanism kicks in. And self-talk is exactly what you might be thinking, and it's the talk we have with ourselves. And our self-talk isn't necessarily like the ego or anything like that, or the inner critic. This is just, we control this. And there are different kinds of self-talk. There's positive, which is helpful, and then there's negative, which is unhelpful. And the types of positive self-talk are basically, generally the positive self-talk would be helpful. It would override beliefs and biases that can lead to negative feelings and emotions. And just to clear something up, positive self-talk isn't a delusion, because it doesn't involve having thoughts that are not based on reality. So positive self-talk is basically, it's real. It's just me motivating myself, and it's real. So you don't have to feel like crazy or feel like it's a lie, because it's not. If you believe it and it's based on your reality, it's real. It may not be current, it may not be happening at the moment, but it's still real. It's feasible. And then there's coping self-talk, which basically affirms, it improves our task, it reaffirms, a feeling. And it's normally in non-first person, and it could be something like, Roma, you're powerful. Roma, you got this. It's reaffirming what I feel already. Then there's instructional self-talk that, maybe surgeons or teachers may go through, and that's just guiding yourself, hey, take the first step. Now you know what to do. You've done this before. So it's just instructing yourself through a situation. Then we have the negative, the horrible, the unhelpful talk. And that talk is critical, and it comes from the superego. And it's based on beliefs about ourselves that developed during childhood, based on feedback of particular people, especially our parents. And these beliefs create a lens through which, we perceive life, how we view things. So we need to be able to use that inner voice, that inner critic, and the superego, and make it our friend. Train it. Use it as an ally. Like, learn from it. Don't let it overpower you. So take that voice and hear what it has to say. And if it's saying something that makes you feel bad, immediately discard that thought. But if it's saying something that feels right, take it and take heed. And follow the path of least resistance. If you're ever confused about your self-talk and your, then just see where it leads you. And if it's leading you down a path where you're conflicted still and it's not flowing, let it go. Don't force it. So following the path of least resistance.
Be like water.
Yeah, flow.
Yeah, flow like water.
Breathe and flow. Be fluid. Be able to take on many forms.
Yeah.
Being fluid means being balanced. It means being able to deal. It means coping. It means loving, breathing, flowing. Just flowing.
Yeah.
And that's all that's going to flow out today.
Okay. Yeah, the only thing I wanted to share today was just kind of my experiences that I had in the summer. So I was able to finally put a word to this, and it's called intentional community. And I did some kitchen work trade in an intentional community for about a week in the Sequoia National Park, and I don't know. It just brings together a bunch of just different, just it brings together a population of people that care about the things that we're talking about today to a certain degree. And I was just able to gather a lot of things from that experience.
So basically, it brings people together not based on culture or beliefs, but more so on thoughts, like on your mind frame. So people that have the same mind frame as you, or that are willing to learn, versus a
Basically,
community.
Willing to, put their butts out in nature for a week, not shower, and make it work, make it work the right way where, I think they tried their best to not have any like food waste, have no waste at all. And they always say that how, this is my second year going, but they always say that how the park rangers love them because after they leave, the place looks better than when it was.
Oh,
so,
really? Nice.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess with that and just like even, just that Netflix show with Osho and just learning more. I didn't know until this summer that this thing called intentional community exists or is possible. And it's not perfect because, there's always issues and people are people.
Concerns, things come up.
But, at least they're trying to, they're trying to grow, basically.
At least things do come up. At least things do come up. We can talk about these things.
Right.
There are environments where things come up and people ignore them. And that's when a void is created. That's when depression kicks in because we have these emotions and these feelings and we're taught to like, oh no, ignore that because you know what? This is not what we believe. So it must be not real if you're feeling it and we don't believe it. So let's disregard it. And that's fucked up.
And I realized just being there for like a week, it's very healing just in the sense that like you get to just be immersed in nature like as it should be, you know what I mean? And I feel like especially, for the both of us, anyone who lives in a big city, you forget that like that's out there and that can really heal you,
We're so plugged in that we forget that, hey, it's okay to just unplug yourself. Because, we're going to get burned out. And that is what led me to, realization, wanting to know the truth. I got so burned out one day and I just couldn't do anything but think. And that's all I did. Because I believe in doing what you can at that moment. So that time I just thought and I thought and I thought and I thought. And I thought and I thought until...
Use your mind as a tool instead of letting it go to a place of low self-esteem.
I have no idea where I was. But all I know is that from there came feelings. And those feelings... needed to be understood, and then me wanting to understand that and just going through the whole process and actually allowing myself, and then I started reading and I started researching these certain feelings and these thoughts, and then I realized that wow, I'm on a path of awakening. Like, here I am, seeking the truth.
Yeah. And
that came from unplugging and just relying on my instincts and my thoughts. But I would love to just go out and have one of those experiences.
I mean, yeah, it brings a lot of clarity, it puts things in perspective, and for me it was a good reset, I guess.
It's okay to reset, guys. It's really okay. We deserve that.
I think yeah, it's impossible to not reset. You have to reset somehow, and it's either a good way or a bad way.
And I just want to make one more point that with the intentional community, we're all there to help each other. And I feel like sometimes in the city or just anywhere, we don't want to ask people for help because we don't want to be vulnerable. Because people put us down for being vulnerable, and that's not okay. That's bullying. We all bring something positive if we choose to see it that way, and we're all here to help each other. And it's unfortunate when we go to somebody for help and they want to put us down instead. So with that being said, you know, each one teach one, and it takes time, like anything great, but if you believe it, go out there, let people know. Do it with intent. Take responsibility.
Yeah, I think that's key. That whether it's an intentional community or whether it's just an individual, you have to have some kind of intent. You have to make that intent within yourself, within your community, and then like go in that direction, make it happen.
Yeah. If you're
Realize
thinking
it,
about it,
yeah.
if it's on your mind, just know it's currently under manifestation. All right, you guys, that's all I got, and tune in. I hope you guys will come back, and you know, and we will be more insightful.
If they have any questions, where can they reach us?
Yes, we would love your feedback. You know, as we're growing, we would like to touch and reach out to more people, but as of now, you can reach out to me on my Instagram, which is romydrip.444. That's ROMYDRIP.444. Or you can reach me on my Facebook, which is Roma S. Khan. And
I'm just at Dumanes, DUMANES.
Until we expand, you guys. So let's see where this goes.
Enjoy the song.
Bye.
Bye.